Okay, let me start with something that's probably going to feel a little too familiar. You check your bank app, not your investing app, not your credit card, your actual bank balance. And for the first time ever, it doesn't start with a 1 or a 2 or a 3. It says $5, something. And instead of feeling rich, instead of feeling safe, instead of feeling like you finally made it, you feel weird, almost anxious, like you're scared to touch it, like every decision suddenly feels heavier, like money just got louder in your head instead of quieter. If that's you, congratulations, because you just crossed the most psychologically important money threshold of your entire financial life. And nobody warned you what comes next. This is quiet wealth. And I spend way too much time thinking about money psychology, personal finance mistakes, and why doing the right thing with money somehow still feels wrong. And if you're someone who's trying to save, invest, or just stop feeling broke, even when your bank account says you're not, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Because this is one of those conversations most people never have, and it changes everything once you understand it. Here's the thing. Your first $5,000 has absolutely nothing to do with math. It has nothing to do with interest rates, nothing to do with returns, nothing to do with investing strategies. It's about identity. Because before $5,000, money feels like survival. After $5,000, money becomes responsibility, and your brain is not prepared for that shift. Now look, most people think the big milestones are $100,000, $1 million, financial freedom, early retirement, all that flashy stuff. But behavioral economists have found that the biggest psychological shift happens between zero and the first few $1,000s. In fact, a study published by the American Psychological Association showed that stress reduction from savings is nonlinear, meaning the emotional relief from your first few $1,000s is disproportionately large compared to later gains. Translation: going from $0 to $5,000 feels more life-changing than going from $50,000 to $100,000. And that's exactly why everything feels off. Before $5,000, your brain is operating in what psychologists call scarcity mode. Every dollar has a job. Every expense feels dangerous. Every purchase triggers guilt. You're constantly asking, can I afford this? Should I wait? What if something happens? But once you hit $5,000, something flips. Now you're not just managing money. You're managing risk, and that's where most people mess it up. Here's what most people don't realize. The moment you cross $5,000, your brain stops seeing money as fuel and starts seeing it as something you could lose. Loss aversion kicks in. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, showed that humans feel losses roughly twice as strongly as gains. So, gaining $5,000 feels good, but losing $500 after that feels terrible. That's why people suddenly freeze. They stop investing. They stop taking opportunities. They start overthinking every decision. Now you might be thinking, isn't that a good thing? Isn't being careful smart? Yes, but here's where it gets interesting. Being too careful at this stage is actually one of the most expensive mistakes you can make, because your first $5,000 is not supposed to make you rich. It's supposed to train your behavior. Think of it like this. Learning to drive in an empty parking lot feels safe. Learning to drive on a highway feels terrifying. But if you stay in the parking lot forever, you never actually learn how traffic works. $5,000 is the highway entrance ramp, and most people either floor it or slam on the brakes. Both are bad. Let me show you what usually happens. Person A hits $5,000 and thinks, I can't lose this. So they leave it all in a checking account earning 0.01%. Inflation is running at, let's be conservative, 3 to 4%. That means they're losing $150 to $200 per year in purchasing power just by doing nothing. It feels safe, but it's quietly moving backward. Person B hits $5,000 and thinks, "This is my chance." They dump it into a random stock, crypto, options, or whatever TikTok is hyping that week. They're not investing. They're gambling with identity money. And when it drops 20%, they don't just lose money. They lose confidence. Both people misunderstand what $5,000 is for. Here's the real purpose of your first $5,000. It's a buffer that buys you mental clarity. That's it. And clarity is more valuable than returns at this stage. Because once you have a buffer, your decisions change. You negotiate differently. You take smarter risks. You stop making panic purchases. You stop saying yes to bad financial choices just to survive. This is where psychology beats math. A report from the Federal Reserve found that nearly 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing or selling something, which means even $5,000 puts you ahead of a massive portion of the population, not financially, but psychologically. Now here's the part nobody warns you about. Once you hit $5,000, people expect you to act like you're good with money, including yourself. Suddenly you feel pressure to optimize, to invest perfectly, to never mess up. And that pressure creates paralysis. You start consuming endless content. You wait for the right time. You overanalyze tiny decisions. This is called analysis paralysis, and it spikes right after early success. Your brain says, "Don't screw this up," but money doesn't grow from perfection. It grows from consistency. Let me give you a simple example. If you invest $5,000 and earn 7% annually, after 1 year you have $5,350. Cool. But if that $5,000 allows you to sleep better, negotiate a $5,000 raise, avoid one bad debt decision, or take one higher-paying job opportunity, that return dwarfs the investment gains. That's the leverage nobody talks about. Money gives you options before it gives you returns. Now look, this is where most people's thinking is backwards. They treat money like a scoreboard. Higher number equals winning, lower number equals losing. But early money is not a score. It's a tool, and tools are meant to be used, not worshipped. Here's a metaphor I love. Your first $5,000 is like learning balance on a bicycle. You're going to wobble. You might fall, but that's how balance is built. If you never ride because you're scared of falling, you never actually learn. So what should you actually do after $5,000? First, you separate the money by purpose. Some of it is stability. Some of it is growth. Some of it is learning. Not emotionally, structurally. This removes decision fatigue. Second, you accept that small mistakes are not failures. They're tuition. Losing $200 because you invested too aggressively is not the same as losing $200 because you were careless. One teaches you, the other drains you. Third, you stop asking, "What's the best return?" and start asking, "What decision makes future decisions easier?" That's the mindset shift, because wealth is not built by one perfect move. It's built by stacking slightly better decisions over time. Here's what most people don't realize. The real danger after $5,000 isn't losing it. It's getting comfortable too early. You start thinking, "I'm okay now." But $5,000 doesn't make you secure. It makes you less fragile. There's a difference. True security comes from systems, income growth, and behavior, not a single number. So if you're sitting at $5,000 right now, Feeling proud but also nervous? That's normal. It means your brain is recalibrating. You're leaving survival mode and entering responsibility mode. And that transition is uncomfortable for everyone. The people who win long term are not the ones who protect the $5,000 like it's sacred. They're the ones who use it intentionally. They let it change how they think, how they plan, how they take risk. They don't rush. They don't freeze. They move forward with awareness. And here's the final thing I want you to remember. Your first $5,000 is not proof that you're good with money. It's proof that you're capable of becoming good with money. And those are very different things. If you treat this stage correctly, the next $5,000 comes faster, and the next, and the next. Not because of some secret strategy, but because you finally stopped letting money control your emotions and started letting it support your decisions. And that's when everything actually changes. If this made you think a little differently about where you're at, hit subscribe. Because this channel isn't about getting rich quick. It's about understanding money well enough that it stops controlling your life and starts quietly working in the background. And once you get that part right, the numbers take care of themselves.